All right, we're going to look at one more review problem. So in the circular base of a cone, so in this picture of this cone I have here, here's the circular base of the cone. So we're just meaning like this circle, for instance. So take this circle and think about it just being that bottom piece. The length of a 210 degree arc. So here's an arc. The central angle is 210 degrees, which means technically also this arc is 210 degrees, but the length of this arc is 28/3 pi. If the volume of the cone is 192 pi cubic centimeters, so we're saying the whole volume of this thing is 192 pi, then calculate the slant height of the cone. And remember, the slant height is this value here, which I've already highlighted in pink and have labeled with my cursive L. Write your answer as a simplified square root. So we're not going to get just a plain old decimal answer here. We're just going to get a square root answer. So we could talk about the volume here. So volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared times the height. But in this problem, I don't know what the radius is, nor do I know what the height is. So really, I'm kind of stuck at this point. One thing I could do is divide both sides by pi. And so then there's one less thing I got to worry about. I could even go ahead and multiply both sides by 3. So let's say we multiply both sides by 3 to get rid of this 1/3. And then 192 times 3 is what? That's 6, 7, carry my 2, 576. So 576 is r squared times height. But I don't know r and I don't know h, so I can't do anything with this. So that means I got to come over here. This is going to be the key that's going to help me unlock the rest of this problem. So now, this was talking arc length. So now, if we use the formula for arc length, and arc length was equal to x over 360, that was the fraction of the whole circle, times pi times the diameter. It's the fraction of the circumference. Well, the arc length, we were told, was 28 pi over 3. And this is equal to x. What fraction of the circle does this represent? This is 210 degrees of all 360 degrees times pi times the diameter. So now notice the only variable left over in this whole thing is the diameter. And if we can figure out what the diameter is, we can figure out what the radius is, which we could then use up here. And then we could figure out what the height is. And then from there, we can try to figure out what the slant height is. All right, so now in this equation, both sides have a pi. We could divide it over. I'm not going to write the division, but we could divide it over. And then what would really help is if I simplified this, but you could multiply by the reciprocal over on the other side. But let's just say we divided both of these numbers by 10, so that would eliminate those. Both of these numbers have a factor of, what, 3? So if I divided that by 3, I'd get 7. Divide this by 3, I'd get 12. So now I can multiply both sides by the reciprocal, 12 sevenths. So 7s cancel, 12s cancel, 12s cancel. Now multiply this side by 12 sevenths. And so now I'm taking this 28/3 times this 12 sevenths. This 7 can cancel out this 28, leave me a factor of 4. This 3 can cancel out that 12 and leave me with a factor of 4. And in the end, I've got this 4 times 4, which is 16, which is just the diameter. So now cut that in half, and the radius is 8. Now we can take that radius of 8 and plug it in up here. So now we've got 576 equals radius squared, 8 squared, times the height. So this is 576 equals 64 times h. Divide the 64 over. And so let's see, what is, calculator, 576 divided by 64 gives me exactly 9. So the true height of the cone is 9. But I want to know what's the slant height of the cone. And again, if you look at this right triangle that's going to be standing up inside of here, we knew what the radius ended up being, right? We figured out the radius was 8, so we could draw that in our picture. And so we've got this right triangle where this bottom piece is 8, this vertical piece is 9, and we could use the Pythagorean Theorem to finally finish out and get the slant height. Now, this is not going to be a triple. It's not going to be an 8, 9 something. So we're just going to have to do the Pythagorean Theorem. So 8 squared plus 9 squared equals slant height squared. 64 plus 81 equals slant height. This is going to give me 145 equals slant height squared. Square root both sides, square root cancel, and the slant height is the square root of 145. Now, is that fully simplified? Well, 5 can go into 145 29 times, but then 5 and 29 are both prime, and they can't be broken down anymore, so the square root of 145 is the final answer. Now, once upon a time, this used to be an actual test question. And then, as you can see, the amount of work that it took to solve this, not many people ended up solving this fully. But this is a good example of how you can take one problem, work it out as far as you can, take another problem that's presented in here, and work it out, and then see how those two things can work together to allow you to solve for what's being asked in the end. So this is definitely more of a challenge problem. And again, I used to have this on a test. So just keep in mind, once upon a time, this used to be fair game, but not as much these days. And that's all for this last problem.